G'day, you glorious Bomber fans. So recently I asked you guys to ask me some questions about the upcoming 2026 season. Today I'm going to answer those questions. We've got a good old-fashioned Q&A on our hands here, guys. There's a lot to get through today. There's over 50 questions that I will be answering on camera, but for your sake, for your sanity, I will be editing this video pretty heavily. There's going to be heaps of questions that don't make the final cut. If that's the case, it doesn't even mean it's a bad question. It might be a bad response from yours truly. So yeah, keep that in mind, but let's just get right into it. We're going to start with a question from the absolutely Essendon gentleman. In fact, 4 questions from DT and Smoking Joe. Will Zach Reid play a full season? And if so, will we have our own Rhys Andrews? Now, first part of that question, I'm going to flat out say no. Even if Zach Reid is fully fit, it's not a no because he's going to get injured. That's not a prediction. I think even if Zach Reid is fully fit, he'll be bubble wrapped, once or twice during the season, so he can have a little rest. I think that was maybe a bit of a fault of the team last year, having Zach Reid play through some knocks every now and then. Not saying that was the reason that hamstring injury occurred in the end, but he could have had a bit more of a rest than he did. He played so much footy, in such quick succession, which is rare for Zach Reid, who's only played 19 games in his career. Half of that was in the 2025 season. So I'm going to say it's a no. I think even if he's fully fit, he'll probably be rested once or twice, and I think that's the ideal scenario. I'd be hoping that Zach Reid gets a few rests, and that would also, give someone like Lewis Hayes a bit of a go if he recovers from that ACL in time. The second part of that question, will we have our own Rhys Andrews? I think the exciting thing about Zach Reid, and it's a big fingers crossed moment because of his body, but I think Zach Reid has the capabilities and the weapons in his arsenal to be a genuinely not even a Rhys Andrews, but I don't want to say better or more because, the guy's played 19 games, but there was a lot shown in that patch of games after Port Adelaide last year where he went on a 4 or 5 or 6 game run just playing elite football. He was in the team of the week quite a few times, posted by, radios, SEN and whatnot. But I think the great thing about Zach Reid is that he's not only an intercepting threat, he's not only a good one-on-one key defender who can lock down an opponent, which he showed last year as well. It's his ball use. That is really rare for a player 2 meters tall to be that good in the air, that imposing in the air, but also reliable and damaging by foot. So if Zach Reid can play, almost a full season of footy, it's boding well for the Bombers, and it's boding well for Zach Reid, who I genuinely think could be, I don't want to say all-Australian because, again, he's played 19 games, but he really could be. If he plays a full season, he's got the capabilities, he's got the weapons, he just needs to put it all together, get his body right. A good question. I don't think he'll play a full season, but I'm really hoping he gets close to it. Will Andy McGrath prove to be an inspired choice as captain? I'm going to say no, but I don't think that's an issue. I think I'm pretty content with what Andy McGrath is as captain. I don't think he's that 30 disposal, 3 goal game, lead by example type captain. That is Zach Merrett, and that is great on field, and we're going to have that on field with Zach Merrett still at the club next year. I think Andy McGrath, the issue with Andy McGrath is that most footy fans only watch the footy, and a lot of the time Andy McGrath isn't amongst the best, 2 or 3 or 4 best players, but what he does off the field at training to help these young guys develop and grow is crucial, and that is what he's going to continue doing as captain. So I hope we see more of those performances like we saw against St Kilda, where he was genuinely inspirational. That I think it was Rhys Unwin who Andy McGrath was mic'd up, and Rhys Unwin was talking about Andy McGrath being an inspirational leader in that game. I don't think that's the type of captain he's going to be, but what he is as a captain is, we already know, it's that off-field leader who can help the young guys develop and grow. That's what he's been doing for years now, and that's why he's been voted in as captain in 2026. Will Kako and El Achkar become the most feared small forward duo in the league? I'd like to see them play some footy together. That would be fun because they're good mates, and I think they're similar players, similar builds, and I guess their traits are similar in a few ways, but I think Kako and El Achkar will play different roles when they play, so there's room for them to play together if Huss does develop quicker and gets into that AFL team, because Huss can be that closer to goal small forward. I think Kako will roam up the ground a bit more, maybe play a bit of midfield, but I think Kako not only has the attributes to play close to goal and hit the scoreboard, but his entry level work, forward 50 entry work, and just his ball use in general is genuinely damaging. So I think there's room for both of them to fit in the same forward line and not clutter things up a little bit. I don't think El Achkar will play heaps of footy in 2026. I think it'll more likely be Guelphy and Gresham, but you know, there's a good friendship there, there's a good bond, and that can only mean good things on the footy field, hopefully in the future. And the final question from absolutely Essendon, and the most important, will Felix grow a full beard or tease with a 4-day stubble? It's going to be the stubble. It doesn't grow. It grows out here. I get the mutton chops. It's very, very Amish. I tell you what, if I get to 15,000 subscribers before the end of the year, I will grow out so you guys can see the sideburns. You don't want to see it. Hello, Nigel. He asks, do we reckon we're still tracking okay, the Bombers? Parrish is back. Caddy seems okay now. The ACL guys look like they are on track. Is it only Ridley and Martin that look dodgy? They don't look dodgy, they look beautiful. Yeah, Martin's out for the year, we know that. Ridley is going to be back soon. I was thinking he'd be back full training, in 2026. He was running that well late in 2025, so I think he's going to be back in main training, hopefully pretty soon. You've got Martin out for the year. You've got Hayes and Edwards and Nick Bryan, the ACL boys. Hayes is a bit behind. Bryan and Edwards are looking really good. Jones, Setterfield and Perkins, the bike boys from 2025, they are now running, which is really good. Sullivan Roby, they're being cautious with. There's no confirmed timeline or anything for Killian Burke yet. I think the good thing about this is that, health and fitness, it's obviously a big discussion for the Bombers after what we saw in 2025. The good news, and I talked about this in a recent video, is that we haven't really seen too many new injuries, in this new block of training. The Bombers have been working really, really hard. They've been working as hard as they have in years, and there haven't been too many, serious new injuries. Obviously, Martin's setback, but that was already with an ACL that was done late last year. There was, of course, Jordan Ridley and that minor hamstring. Killian Burke, Sullivan Roby was an issue before he was drafted, and it was only picked up after he was drafted. So there haven't really been any new injuries for the Bombers, which is, touch wood, obviously, there might be still. But you look at other clubs, Will Day at Hawthorn, Collingwood have all those calf and muscle injuries with those older players. The Bombers, it doesn't look like we're fit because we've got a lot of players on the sidelines, but most of those players are from 2025, the main season, and the rest are all training well. Parrish is looking really good. Mackay, Reid, obviously, touch wood, anything can happen, but right now, I think it might not look like it, but the Bombers, health-wise, are in a genuinely decent spot considering all the issues we had in 2025. Do you think Brad Scott will be our next premiership coach, whenever that may be? It's an interesting one because my gut says no. I think it's, you'd be very brave to just flat out say yes, that he will be. And I think that'd be more hope than anything. We haven't really seen a successful Essendon team. I mean, a successful Essendon team in years, but a successful Brad Scott Essendon team. We've seen glimpses, we were top 4 for a while, we were top 8 for a while in a few years, but we haven't made finals under Brad Scott. There's not really any logical argument to say that Brad Scott will be our next premiership coach, but I don't think he has to be, and I don't think that's what we need right now. I think, if we had our next premiership coach on our list, I'd be hoping that our team would be a lot more experienced and building for actually, winning games of footy, because right now, what we're trying to do is build stability at the club. We're trying to build these young players up for them to be playing lots of good footy in the next few years, and I think that's what Brad Scott is going to give us. I think where there's a clear focus on the future, there's a clear focus on youth, that's not going to bode well for on-field performances. Young teams, as young as Essendon, rarely win grand finals. Brad Scott's tenure ends, or his contract runs out at the end of 2027. Obviously anything can happen in the next 2 years, but I wouldn't be surprised if, noise from the fans after, more seasons out of the top 8 or top 10 results in him getting the sack. I really wouldn't be surprised at all. That's the way footy goes. If you don't win games, you're not, as a coach, you're not doing too well. But I think what we need right now is a Brad Scott at the helm, an experienced coach to help these young players grow for the future. I don't think Brad Scott is our next premiership coach, but I don't think that's an issue. I think I'd want him to stay for 2027 so we actually have some stability for these young players to grow up with. Will we win the flag, and will Merrett sign a 10-year extension? These are the questions that we need asked. Yes, we're going to win the flag. Yes, Zach Merrett will sign a 10-year extension. I think I did just say that Brad Scott won't be our next premiership coach, but I take it back. We're winning the flag. My biggest concern, if injuries are in a better place this year, do we fall back to the status quo of playing senior players that may not deserve to be in the first team? Question mark, question mark, question mark from de Grim established 1981, I'm guessing. It's an interesting one because Brad Scott comes to the Bombers at the end, or 2023, 2024. One of the big concerns, as you say, back then was the fact that Essendon were leaning towards senior experience and trying to win games of footy. And yes, we were winning games of footy for most of the year, but when we dropped off, the question was, why aren't we playing, so and so? Pat Voss didn't get a game. Now he's starring at Fremantle. Massimo D'Ambrosio left for opportunity and is flourishing at Hawthorn. So that was a genuine concern early with Brad Scott. I think the difference now compared to 2023 and 2024 is that we don't really have any senior players. Our oldest player is Zach Merrett. We've got 12 or 13 players over the age of 25. I think most of our team is 25 or under. So to start with, I don't think this is really possible because there's not much senior experience left in the team. Most of this team is very young and developing. If you're looking at the placement of players in their AFL careers, most of them still have room to grow and develop. So that's a good thing for the Bombers, especially as we look forward to the future. But I think it also means, if anything, the concern could be the opposite, because what we need on the field, and this was really evident in 2025, is senior experience and cohesion with these senior players who have played footy together. I think that was the main thing, or the main talking point at Essendon when I went there recently, was the fact that there was pretty much no cohesion on Essendon's squad in 2025. You had all these players, senior players who have actually not played much footy together because of injury. So I think the goal this year is to actually get these senior players that, some will say may not deserve to be actually playing together, because that could unlock them. People will criticise Ben Mackay, but look at how well we played with Ben Mackay, Reid and Ridley in the same team. We won most of the games that those three players were playing in. You have Darcy Parish and Zach Merrett, who haven't played a lot of footy in recent years. Darcy Parish has barely played in the midfield with Sam Durham and Jai Caldwell. The forward line cohesion, it was changing every week. So what we need more than anything is genuine stability on field with these players so they can learn how to play together. And that involves the senior players, because, some of these senior players are barely senior players. Some of our oldest players are 26, 27. So yeah, I think it was definitely a concern in 2024, 2023, when we had, an older team, well, not older, but, more experience on our team. And even then, that experience, it was guys like Laverty, Goldstein, guys who were, they were battling, yes, but they weren't star players. I look at the experience we got now. Peter Wright is a Crichton medal winner at his best. Darcy Parish was All-Australian at his best. Langford and Redmond were All-Australian squad. You've got these players who are genuinely really good players when fit and available. They just haven't been able to play together for a long time. So if anything, I want to see these guys play pretty regular footy together. I know that might be a bit of a hot take, but my biggest concern is senior players not playing together. Scooter McNeese, Scott from the Lunchtime Catch-Up podcast. Can Nik Cox be a realistic option forward in 2026? And that's an interesting question, because you don't think of Nik Cox as a forward, or you don't think of him as a position, to be honest. He's a genuine utility, but I think going forward we need Nik Cox to lock down a position so we can actually keep him on our list, because we've got utilities now. In 2021 it was he was the unicorn because he could play wing, ruck, defense. Now we've got guys that can do that. We've got Harry Jones who can play wing. We've got all these athletic types on our team who can play multiple positions. The need for a tall utility like Nik Cox is less than it was when he arrived, especially now that he hasn't been playing footy for so long. So what we need is Nik Cox to nail down a position in 2026. Is that position going to be forward? I think it's probably the position he hasn't really tried out the most. He's been training there recently, I think, or been in the structure in some recent drills up forward, which is interesting. I personally, I don't see how he fits as a key forward, because he's, those lanky forwards that you see, like even Danaher's got a bit of muscle to him, but the Eric Hipwood types are not the same athletes as a Nik Cox. I think Nik Cox is more aerobic based, which, yes, it means he can get up and back the ground, but I think that suits a wing more. I don't know. Nik Cox is an interesting one. I think you've seen him kick goals. He kicked a few bags of 3 in 2024 when he played almost every game before that concussion. Yeah, I don't know. Nik Cox for me is a really tough one. It's impossible to judge, isn't it? There's clearly talent. There's clearly a player there that we saw in 2021 at his youngest. It's just, whether he can A, stay on the park, and B, play effective footy when he's on the park. So massive year for Nik Cox. Do I think he could be a realistic forward option in 2026? I guess that's probably the most up in the air line. There's probably a bit to discover there, and maybe Nik Cox can, find an opportunity and break into that team somehow. But I'm going to bet more on guys like Archie finding their place in the team, and Nate Caddy playing regular footy than Nik Cox being a forward in 2026. Hello, Richard. Happy New Year. Who should we watch out for this year from the James Hird Academy? That is Essendon's Next Generation Academy. We're talking about the draft now. Given the extent of the list, it might take a separate video, and I'm glad you mentioned that because there will be a separate video coming out very shortly. I think probably next week I'll be talking about Essendon's Academy options, so stay tuned to that. But yeah, I'll quickly rattle off a few names now. This year, the main one is Blake Justice. He was probably the best of the bottom ages last year for the Calder Cannons. He's a 190-odd centimetre wingman, probably still growing a bit. He played a bit in the midfield, can play a bit up forward as well. Very talented. He's working on his skills a lot in the off-season. I think actually Scott from the Lunchtime Catch-Up podcast will be having him on his podcast pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. That'll be fun. But Blake Justice is someone I've watched really closely in the last year or two, and he does look like a pretty talented player, so I'd be watching out for him in 2026. Aside from that, you've got guys like Jad Naeem, who played some good footy in the back end. He's another wingman type. Brother of Amin Naeem, who was also in our academy a few years ago. You've got Olu Olalekin, who's a big defender. You've got Cohen McGrath, who's I think the son of Corey McGrath. There's a few players that are kind of in the mix, but maybe not certified draft options. I'll talk more about them in the video. But it should also be noted, this time of the year is when you really you don't know much about the draft because it's when training starts. They haven't even started practice games or anything yet. This time last year, I don't think anyone would have known too much about Adam Swade because he had that ACL and then he bursts onto the scene and becomes a first round draftee. So anything can happen with these academy guys. The year to watch those 2027. So I think 2026 is Blake Justice. 2027, you've got Kobe Buick, who I love. He's a great young talent, and we should be really excited about him. You've got Mustafa Darwish, who's a small forward who can kick goals, or even a distributing defender in the back half. He's really good. And you've got Tavita Roden, who is the son of David Roden, eligible to join Port as a father-son next year, but he's also now eligible to join Essendon. They've included Pacific Islands in the NGA zone. So that's really exciting. We've got a 2027 is a big year. I wouldn't be surprised if those three guys are all being talked about in the first round of the draft. They're all really exciting last year in their underage footy. Again, anything can happen. Anything can change in the draft landscape, but 2027 is the year shaping up to be the big one for Essendon's draft haul. That is if they don't change the rules too much. Thoughts on Rhys Unwin playing 15 to 20 games? I think he's improved a lot this preseason, and Kako needs a mate. If not, who is the small forward with Kako? Kako doesn't need a mate. Is there anyone at the club better at making friends or close friends than Isaac Kako? I feel like he's always got a best mate. It's Nate Caddy, it's Jaden Nguyen, it's Zach Johnson, now it's Kako El Achkar. So he doesn't need friends, but he does need partners in that forward line. Is Rhys Unwin the answer? I think it's an interesting one because he is looking good at training. I think 15 to 20 games... I think probably not in 2026. I think he's probably still a little bit lean, but I really like the attributes that Rhys Unwin has. His lateral movement is unbelievable. There's probably no one as agile as Rhys Unwin at the club. He's got to find that balance between building muscle so he can actually stand up in tackles, but also keeping that agility and that breakneck speed that he has through his legs. He's definitely got some tricks, Rhys Unwin, and he's someone that the club really liked in his draft year, which is interesting because in his draft year, he was actually probably underperforming a little bit. So that's interesting that the club was so big on him and actually wanted to draft him earlier than they did. 15 to 20 games will be interesting. There'll probably need to be a few injuries. I'd still back in guys like Matt Guelphy. Even Jade Gresham are probably going to have more output than Rhys Unwin. Kako El Achkar is another one. I think as for Kako, I'd be having an experienced player like a Matt Guelphy alongside him. But if there's some injuries and Rhys Unwin plays footy, I think it's a good thing. I think although he wasn't ready to play AFL last year, he only really played because of the injury. I think that's great because we got to see, you know, what he could do. He had some really special little moments in games that shows his potential as a player, and there's definitely something there if he puts it all together. Do we have a forward line capable of scoring through the application of defensive pressure? Which players make that forward line? So if you're talking about defensive pressure, Isaac Kako is probably the big one. And Matt Guelphy, I guess, they're probably the main two that you want in that forward line applying pressure. Isaac Kako is more that tenacious pressure, the ground level player. Matt Guelphy does apply pressure, but it's more through his direct lockdown roles. He's the type of player to really just nullify and you know, shut a player out of a game rather than just you know, lay tackle after tackle in the forward half. So they're the two that you want in the team applying pressure. You've got guys like Kako El Achkar, who's quick but probably still needs to improve that defensive craft a little bit. Jade Gresham is Jade Gresham. It's an interesting one. We probably don't have the defensive pressure that, you know, the best teams in the league do. Like, you look at a Hawthorn, for example, you've got Nick Watson, Dylan Moore, even like Jack Ginnivan, Connor McDonald. That is defensive pressure right there, and that is speed, creativity, and defensive pressure. We don't really have that balance yet, so that's probably what the Bombers need to find, and it's still a position that we really need to lock down because, you know, Isaac Kako for the future is good, but after that there are genuine questions about who's going to be alongside him. And then you've got the key forwards. I think Peter Wright is, you know, he's limited to what he can do pressure-wise. You want to get the most out of guys like Langford and Caddy and you know, Archer May on ground level as well, helping out the smaller forwards who aren't at the top tier of the AFL in terms of defensive pressure. So I think in terms of if we're splitting up the league as a whole, we're probably in the bottom half in terms of genuine defensive pressure, but there's no reason why that can't change. You know, that's something that it's an interesting one because it's a mind thing. You know, Jade Gresham at his best is a genuinely, like, he hunts the footy, he hunts the opponent, he can lay tackles, and we've seen that in some of his best games, but he doesn't do it consistently enough. So it might not even be a personnel thing, it might be a system thing, it might be a structure thing, it might be a mentality thing. Shaky Snake needs to know what Sam Durham's diet has been this off-season. He is absolutely shredded. It's intimidating, isn't it? You see the photos. He's got a genuine 12-pack Sam Durham. He's the kind of guy you don't want to go to the beach to. You want to steer clear of him because he's just gonna make you feel pretty crap about yourself. I don't know what his diet is, but I can tell you what it isn't. It is not double quarter pounder meals at McDonald's, because that's what I've been having, and my body does not look the same as Sam Durham's. But no, he's looking and ripping Nick Sam Durham, and so a few of the other boys as well. There's a few you could have put into here, but Sam Durham, every preseason is always, you know, there's always a shirtless photo that he probably posts himself to really hype up the fans, and to be fair, he is looking good at training. You did ask about a drinks break, and I think this is a good time for it. Now, we're going to be steering clear of the alcohol. I've got work tomorrow, but these drinks right here, this has been my life for the last few months. I reckon I've been keeping Coco Coast in business. This is a flavored coconut water. It is lychee. This one, there's a few other flavors you can get. Why am I not sponsored? Coco Coast. No, I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. I've been drinking too many of these over the last few months. They are good. Now, while we are taking a little break, I think it's probably a good time to talk about the structure of these longer videos going forward. Obviously, I like to yap. I yap a lot. And you guys who watch me yap on YouTube have spoken to me in the comments about how difficult it can be at times to, you know, stay engaged with longer videos on YouTube because, you know, you've got ads. It's, you know, you can't exit the app while watching, which is obviously not ideal. And I completely understand that, which is why what I'll be trying to do with the channel going forward, not starting straight away, but I'll be producing the same content that I do, but once a week I will be making a longer form video, whether it's a player ratings video, whether it's something like this, whether it's a podcast style video that, you know, goes for 30 plus minutes that I can not only upload on YouTube, but also on Spotify, so you guys can listen while going for a walk or in the car, you know, whatever you guys do. So yeah, going forward, there will be a Spotify account that'll be made, and that will be distributed and shared with you guys as soon as that is up and running. It won't start straight away, but if you like these longer form videos and you want to listen easier, there will be a Spotify account that will be able to be listened to. Back to the questions. Steve asks how we will go in the ruck. Will they expose Blackiston as an athletic ruckman? Vigo seems too raw, and Brian will be a while. Brian will probably be back around when he was injured, if not earlier, or maybe a bit later to ease him back into it through the VFL. I think the question is going to be, what happens when all these ruckmen are back fully fit together? Vigo's too raw, I agree. I think we saw that last year. He was, he showed signs, but he was bullied by better ruckmen because of his age. So he's going to be playing mostly VFL. The question is going to be, what will we do when Brian and Blackiston are fit and available to play together? Are they effective enough to warrant having a 2-ruck setup? I don't think so, personally. I think it's a 1-ruck setup with Peter Wright pinch hitting. And then the question is it Blackiston or is it Nick Bryan? I personally see a world where it could be Lockie Blackiston. I think his athletic attributes and his leap and just the way he gets around the ground could really be of use for the Bombers, especially as the rules change to reduce stoppages and to have more time with the footy actually moving. Nick Bryan is athletic himself and he can move around, but I think Lockie Blackiston's athleticism is his main strength. Nick Bryan, for me, I think he hasn't really announced himself as a number 1 ruckman yet. I think he was always number 2 behind Sam Draper. So for Nick Bryan, it's a big year when he comes back from that VFL. Can he announce himself as that number 1 ruck? Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the ruck setup and the ruck situation at Essendon right now is one of the big questions going into 2026. Now, are we going to be an effective team with our ruck setup as it currently is? Lockie Blackiston and Nick Bryan, no offense to them, but they're not the best ruckmen in the league. How will they go against guys like Max Gawn? How will they go against, Luke Jackson and these types? So it's going to be a really interesting one. My guess is that Lockie Blackiston starts the year as the ruck and Nick Bryan eventually comes into the fold a bit as well, because he's probably proven himself a little bit more as that main ruck or just a ruckman in general. Lockie Blackiston played his first footy in defence. Do you think that Archie Perkins will finally take the leap he has been expected to make now that he has direct positional competition with the likes of Sullivan, Roby? That is a good question. It's a fascinating one, isn't it, Archie Perkins? I think, think back to round 1, 2023, when he kicks that 3-goal, 20-odd disposal game against Hawthorn, or maybe 2024. And I think there was even an article in the AFL about Archie Perkins and how he's going to take this step forward and be that player. He's not just a promising player, but he's going to be a genuine player of the competition. And fast forward to now, and is Archie Perkins in our best 23? That's the question now, isn't it? He's a fascinating one. I think he's out of contract too, potentially. I'll have to double check that, but it's a massive year for Perkins, because if he doesn't come right soon, you've got guys behind him like Sullivan, Roby in the same position who might show more. And if Sullivan, Roby starts to show more, what do we do with Archie Perkins? That's going to be the main question. So yeah, I don't know. I'm worried about Archie Perkins. I really hope he does come right, because at his best, he's proven to be a best on ground type player, but we haven't seen enough of it over the years, and he's no longer at the age where he is a promising footballer. He's now at the stage of his career where he really has to start showing something. So it's a big year for Mr. Archie Perkins. With Caldwell, Durham and Merrett as most supporters' preferred midfield mix, how does Parrish, Sharp and Sardis work themselves into the team, seeing none have shown the ability to play forward or back? So this is a question about Essendon's one-dimensional midfield, I guess. I wouldn't say it's a one-dimensional midfield, but there are midfielders in it that are one-dimensional. So you could even throw Will Setterfield into that conversation there with Parrish, Sharp and Sardis. So yeah, the big question is, can those three, Parrish, Sharp and Sardis, play in the same team together? Probably not. It's a fascinating one again, because you've got these very similar types of players, and this is why Ben Hobbs was another one who was on the outside, because you've got these ball winners, these first possession players, who are mainly the contested midfielders who don't really have much to their game, on the outside or even in other positions. So there's not much positional flexibility with those three players. Some would argue Dyson Sharp because of what he did in his draft year. I don't think he's going to be playing much forward. I think this guy is a pure midfielder, like we see with Darcy Parish and Elijah Sardis. So yeah, how do we fit them all in the same team? I don't think we do. I think there'll be someone there unlucky to miss out, and then you have, if they're all playing in the same team, there's probably something wrong either with our fitness and our health or with our midfield structure. There's not enough damage with those three players. There's not enough flexibility with those three players for them to play all together. I'm not criticizing them or anything because, what they do at their best is genuinely good as that first possession contest midfielder, but you can't have three of those in the same midfield together. Otherwise, you won't have much rotation capacity. Where's Parrish going to play when Caldwell comes into the midfield? Will he play up forward? Where's Sardis going to play when he's resting? Where's Sharp going to play when he's resting? You can't just throw them in positions because you need to. You want them to be able to play multiple different positions or full-time in the midfield. And that midfield together, Parrish, Sharp and Sardis, those three to me are full-time midfielders. If they're not playing in the midfield, it's probably, not ideal for the team. Sharp, I guess, younger, you can play him, just to get games under the belt. But when they're all at their best playing footy, it's in the midfield. So yeah, it's tough one, isn't it? There's not really much positional flexibility. I think those guys, a few of them will have to miss out. And the one I'm looking at there is probably Elijah Sardis. I struggle to see he gets ahead of guys like Sharp and Parrish if they're fully fit. It's a good question. Can we not fade out of games? Whether it is game style, tackling intensity, scoreboard pressure. That is from Healing Hikes Australia. It's a good question because that has been an issue with Essendon. Red time, conceding goals. I think every Essendon fan live at the game will see the clock tick past 30, and that is when you see goals leak. Essendon are really, for a while now, haven't been a good team at containing not only surges, but surges during important moments of games, late in games or late in quarters. And that's something that the Bombers have been working on in the off-season. Archie Roberts came out and talked about I think he said it was the 7 or 8 minute patch, the most important patch in a quarter, and that is when the Bombers are trying to be at their best, which is, when you're absolutely spent as a team, having to rely on that gut running that, it's not just fitness, but it's mentality. The Bombers have been working on that at training. A lot of drills will be broken up instantly for gut running, and then they have to get back into those drills after doing all these crazy high intensity running situations. It's really hard to watch. I've seen it live, and it is not pretty. You get some really some boys almost chucking up because of how much work they're doing. But the good news is we are working on that. We're working on being that team that doesn't fade out of games, because that is really important. And I think not only what you said here, but something that I've been noticing and I want to really see fixed from the Bombers is when we get on a roll, when we kick 3 or 4 goals in a row, for some reason we relax. And this is why we haven't put a team to bed in a long, long time. I can't remember the last easy win we really had. It's because we'll kick 4 or 5 goals, we'll get a 4 or 5 goal lead, and then we'll kick up the feet, we'll relax because things are going well, and it gives our opposition a chance to enter back into the game. That is what I want to see fixed in 2026. I don't want to see that. I want to see some easy wins from the Bombers, because at our best, we can smash teams. We're a much better team than some of the others in the competition if we're fully fit. I want us to smash some teams this year, because that'll show that we're actually working on fading out of games. It's not just about conceding lots of goals against the best teams. It's about conceding goals against the worst teams too, for me. Hello, Bryce. After a record-breaking year last year, how many debutants will we have this year? So we have 7 players, 7 players on our list yet to play an AFL game. That is, it's not many. We had 15 debutants last year. This year, it's just the possible 7. I think the first 3 draftees that we had in 2025, Sullivan Roby, Dyson Sharp, and Jacob Farrow, I'd be very surprised if any of them don't play a game this year. I'd expect all of them to play at least once. Obviously, injury can change things, but I think all of them are drafted high enough and have genuine, not only upside, but there's a ready-made ability to some of them. Sullivan Roby's a bit raw with his footy brain and everything because of the way he came about in the draft, but his body is ready-made. Jacob Farrow maybe needs a bit more to his body, but his footy brain is ready-made. Dyson Sharp is just ready-made. He's going to play round 1. So those 3 I think will play at some stage of the year. I'd be backing in Dyson Sharp to play early. I'd be backing in Jacob Farrow to play early as well. Sullivan Roby's probably the one that might take a little bit longer given his layoff to start his career at Essendon. Then you've got guys like Max Kondogiannis, who is probably more of a project player, but is looking good at training. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a debut, but it'd probably be late. And I wouldn't say he's a constant starter in the team in 2026. Kako El Achkar again, like it's he could play, but I think it'd be injury or availability for the Bombers that forces his way into the team. Killian Burke is not going to play. I don't think he'll play a game in 2026. He is purely a project player and still learning. Kale Jarine is an interesting one because he's got genuine footy capabilities. He's a good ball user. He's good in the air. I think he's got a long way to go with his fitness still, and probably a few things in his game that he needs to tweak. So I think Kale Jarine was looking like an option to play last year in training, or even this year at times too in training, with some of the things he was doing on the track. But when you piece it all together and look at what Kale Jarine is doing throughout training sessions, yes, it's very good for the most part, but there are still flaws in his game that he needs to work on before he plays AFL level. I think he's more of a long-term option as well, and that's fine. The guy's a ruckman, a key defender, a key forward. They take a bit longer. So I'd be backing in, I'm going to say 4 debutants in 2026. Those 3 that I said, Roby, Sharp, and Farrow, and then I think, one of Kondogiannis or Hussein, maybe even both, maybe 5 debutants for 2026. Hello, 3 Stumps. Not specifically an Essendon question, but I think you mentioned that you will start a draft-related channel in 2026. If so, can you shed more light on the things that you want to talk about? Great question. This is definitely what you guys want to hear about. But no, I should talk about this a little bit more because I did bring it up. But I will be starting a draft. Well, I've already made the draft channel. You guys can give it a follow if you want. I'll have it in the description, in the bio below. But yeah, I'll be talking mainly about the draft. I'll be heading out to lots of under-18s games, watching lots of under-18s games. I think I'll be, aside from Essendon, which I'll watch every week, I'll be mostly watching junior footy for 2026 and beyond, because I think, like, obviously I love AFL. I'm an AFL, I'm a footy nerd. But really the thing that intrigues me most about footy is seeing players develop and grow. And what fascinates me most about footy is not only games, but the list management side of things. And I think the draft is really slept on in this industry or online. There's obviously a few great brains out there. Dylan Alexander is awesome. Pommy and Oz is great as well. But there's clearly a hole that isn't really being entered. I'll be making lots of draft content in 2026. It won't be Essendon specific. It'll be the league as a whole. That'll be on my other channel. I'll still be making lots of everything Essendon videos as well. I'll be a very busy man. Now that he is most likely on the way out, what role is best for Zach Merrett this year? Is it more half back while McGrath plays in the midfield? Some would even say in the forward line. Look, I think it's obviously, well, for starters, we don't know if Merrett is on the way out. He might, backflip and choose to stay. That is entirely possible if the Bombers start playing good footy. But let's say, he's on the way out. We know that he's maybe looking to move again and there's a trade possible. Would the Bombers be playing Merrett out of position for the benefit of the team going forward? And if that's so, what would benefit the team going forward? Would it be having Merrett in the midfield where he plays his best footy? Would it be having another young player in the midfield ahead of Zach Merrett and him, playing in defence, playing in the forward line? I think if Zach Merrett is playing for Essendon, this is the way I see it, it's in the midfield. It's where he plays his best footy, and that is in the midfield. I get that, he might be taking games away from a young midfielder that could be playing in there instead of Zach Merrett. But if he moves to defence, to make way for that midfield, that young midfielder, he's going to be taking games away from a young defender. What's going to happen to Archie Roberts and Zach Johnson and Jacob Farrow if Zach Merrett moves to the back line? Even if you move him forward, what's going to happen with, Kako and Huss and these other young players? So I think either way, wherever Zach Merrett plays on the ground, he's going to be taking a game away from a younger player. He's the oldest player in the team, so of course he is. But I don't think it's as simple as taking him out of the midfield because you want to make way for the youth and prioritize the future going forward, because we've got young players in every zone, and if Zach Merrett's in a zone, he's taking games away from a young player. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a negative. You want your best players playing footy, even if we know Zach Merrett's going to leave. You want him playing in there just for the kids, playing alongside Zach Merrett. That is invaluable lessons for a young player, and you see all the players come to the team. The young players they want to play alongside a Zach Merrett. It's it's a tough one because obviously that trade discussion is going to be around a long time. Even if he looks likely to leave, there'll be many asking or calling for him to be, playing in the VFL. That's already something I've seen a fair bit. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think what role is best for Zach Merrett this year is the role that he is best in. Right now, that's the midfield. In the future, when he starts to slow down, it's probably going to be that Dane Zorko defense role, I think. I can see him playing that. But I think for right now, Zach Merrett in the midfield is what Essendon need. And finally, I think it's fitting we end on this question from Chris. Will Essendon supporters ever let go of the scars of the past and enjoy what the club is building? No, we will not. We're not going to. That's not going to happen. But no, I think it's a good question because this is something I think about a lot. It is almost unfair, and I get that we're impatient, where we want success, we want to see our team win games, but really this is a completely different organisation to what it was even 5 years ago. This is building. We've got a new president, we've got a coach who's been there for 3 or 4 years. We're going to have a new CEO in a bit. We've got new players. We've completely overturned our list. The Essendon of 2026 is so different to the Essendon of 2000, which is so different to the Essendon of 2005, which is so different to the Essendon of the Asada scandal and everything like that. It's a completely different team, and I think it's unfair for us to be. It's fair for us to be impatient. I'm impatient. I want to see success, but we can't really blame the club for going through another rebuild. I know that, it's painful when you see a club going through rebuild after rebuild because that's what Essendon have been doing. But the fact is, it is the right thing to be doing. We just have to hope that what we've got at our disposal is going to be, not just a rebuild, but a successful rebuild, which will propel us up the ladder, because we've had a few in the past that haven't. But yeah, I think it's a tough one. I'm enjoying it. I like young players playing good footy, and that's hopefully what we're going to see in 2026. I'm not expecting great things. I'm not expecting finals. I'm not expecting grand finals. I'm just excited to see what we've got building for the future, because that is what we are doing right now. We are well and truly deep in our rebuild. We're a very young team in 2026, one of the youngest, and I don't think we're going to be winning heaps and heaps of games for the year. I think we're going to be in the bottom half of the ladder, but that doesn't surprise me, and it doesn't worry me too much, because that is where a team in our situation probably should be. But guys, I think I've reached my yapping limit for the night. I have been talking for a while now. I don't even know how long this video is going to be, so apologies if it is a long one. Cheers for watching. There is plenty more yapping to come. I am going to be yapping with some guests. I'm going to be yapping with people that you've seen on the channel before, people that you haven't seen on the channel before. I'm really excited about some of the people I've potentially got coming on for the channel for the first time. We've got some list management videos, some NGA updates coming. There's a lot to come in the next few weeks. We are well and truly back. Lots of videos to come, guys, and the best way to stay updated for those videos is by subscribing to the channel. So thank you guys for watching. As always, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, go Bombers.